unshakable, mighty Savior, your love's unbreakable. Lord, you are the strength of our heart. You're a strong tower we run to. Thank you for your unbreakable love. Amen. Hey, good morning. I didn't see any birthdays or anniversaries this week, so if you have one and you want to stay anonymous, just keep your hand down. Otherwise, we'll be able to write you down on the list and we'll get you in. Assuming you're good, then I'm moving on to regular stuff happening this week. Public Boys and Youth on Tuesday night, right? Still Tuesdays, okay. And then the men's group, Measure Man on Thursday. Yes, Thursday. We had a great time last week. And I started a petition to have Kevin just teach the class every week until we're done with the book. Yeah, he didn't say no to that, so we had a good time. If you haven't been coming and think you might want to, you can come. It's not like you have to have read all the chapters before. Each chapter is kind of. Yes, sir.
I'd just like to apologize to all the men in the group. Last week I accused of stealing my book on how to be a better man. I actually found it in my car. I'm asking for forgiveness. That's our theme recently.
There was a lot of discussion about that stolen book. It takes a big man to stand up and admit that. You must be learning something from that. Yeah, we had a lot of fun over here. Other announcements. Shout it out, raise your hand if you got something.
Ella's birthday is next Sunday, but she may not be here, so she really does want everybody to know it's going to be her birthday.
How old? 8.
She's very excited about her birthday. And we're excited that she's going to have one.
Yes. Amen. Any others? Okay. You want to do children's church now? Is it now your time?
We have a lot to do.
All you kiddos can go on back to children's church.
Drew, is this the point where we announce any prayer requests? I never know.
Yeah, sure. Sometimes we don't. Yeah. Yes, share, please.
Okay. A man from the Clute area, his name is Chuck Pate, went to be with the Lord yesterday morning at 4:30. So I would like to ask for prayers for his family. And he had a concern that his 2 oldest children might not be Christians. So if we could, and I don't know their names, but if we could keep that in our prayers as well.
I met Chuck several years ago. Regularly showed up to a men's Bible study that they were doing at 5:30 in the morning on Thursday mornings, and I met him there. And great man of faith and of the Lord, and I really enjoyed the time that we had at that Bible study. Over the past few years, he's of course not been there just because his work has been so cool. Yeah, sure pray for that family. He leaves a big void in that family. He's very, very strong man of faith. Very good sports.
did surgery, did 5 hours worth of surgery yesterday, and there's about a 65% chance that he'll lose his leg, and I'd like to pray for him.
Okay, what was the name again?
Jim Franklin,
Jim.
my nephew.
Praise report, but still pray. John is doing great, I understand, so God has listened and he's blessed us. He's blessed him.
Yes.
Just continue prayers because he's still in the hospital.
He's getting out Wednesday.
He's getting out Wednesday. Oh, see there you go.
Keep praying for John. Maybe we'll see him
Yes.
back here soon when he's getting better.
Yes.
Hopefully he's locked on watching now.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
And don't forget, we got Emmaus walks coming up. We've already got one candidate from the church. Bruce told me he wanted to go to the men's walk, so y'all be praying for him and for that walk. And got anybody who you think would like to be a part of that, invite them. Ladies Walk 2 coming up. Ladies Walk's not until May. So we got a little more time.
I asked that we pray for the Smith family, speaking of that, they've been going through a lot of changes, a lot of things, adjustments, and we all know that it takes its toll, so I just pray for them.
Okay, let's sing a couple songs and then we'll go into our prayer time. We're on the same song now. Let's go. Sing I Love You Grace. several prayer requests already for the Pate family and for Jim and for John. And sorry if I forgot any others. But there's a lot to be praying for. Of course, there's a lot to be praying for as well. If you'd like to use this time during these next few songs to come and pray with or about something, feel free to do that. And yeah, let's just continue to worship, continue to listen to the Lord.
Jesus, your love is living for.
Hello. All right. Well, hey, if you want to turn to Matthew chapter 6, we're going to be in 16 verses 16 through 18. Let's read it together. This is Jesus talking. He says, "And when you fast, don't make it obvious as the hypocrites do, for they try to look miserable and disheveled, so people will admire them for their fasting. I tell you the truth, that is the only reward they will ever get. But when you fast, comb your hair and wash your face. Then no one will notice that you are fasting except for your Father who knows what you do in private. And your Father who sees everything will reward you." We're talking about fasting today, and I thought it was interesting that, Valentine's Day's tomorrow. We got all this food and candy, and Super Bowl's tonight, and today's probably the most overeating next 36 hours we're going to have in the whole country for the next year, I think. Well, until Thanksgiving, maybe. But when Jesus is talking about fasting as in not eating, but as a spiritual discipline, fasting, it can be just intentionally refraining from anything that you would normally do in order to keep your focus on God. So I'm going to try not to make a bunch of food references today, although it is a big part of fasting. Let's see. The first thing to talk about is the first word or the first two words of that verse. What does yours say there? When, yeah. When you fast. It's so incredibly common in biblical times that they fasted, that it was not to be told, oh, you should fast this or you should do that. It's just new. He was saying when you fast. He knew that everyone would fast. He was just saying when you do it, make sure you do it the right way. And so let me ask you the question, when was the last time that you intentionally chose not to do something that you enjoy doing regularly? When was the last time you fasted? Yeah. Has it been a little while? Can you think of one at all? It's a great discipline for our spiritual lives, and I'm going to give some practical tips on that later. But I was looking through, I save all my sermons, or I think I've saved most of them just because I like to type them in and all that. And I found a sermon on fasting from July of 2003 that I had written. Is the 8th oldest one that I had saved. So, it's been almost 19 years. I guess I've been preaching, I just didn't think about it. It was 20 years of preparing sermons and messages. But in that one, I stole a few things out of that one from last time. I opened by talking about the health benefits of fasting from food for one day. And I'm not going to list them all, but just a few of the highlights were you have clearer skin, it whitens the eyes, it helps with allergic reactions, helps with inflammation and things like rheumatoid arthritis, and it gives your digestive system a much needed rest. Basically all good reasons why we could fast from food that would help us out, right? And those are nice side benefits, but it's not the reason of a spiritual discipline, right? But since I preached that sermon in 2003, nearly half of the population in America is now considered obese. So that sermon didn't work. No. All right, it's not. There's so many other things. Again, I said I wasn't going to talk about food the whole time, but there's just no way to not talk about food when we're talking about fasting. I want to share something else from that message, but I put it at the back for some reason. Okay, a little bit of history about fasting. Sometime around 550 BC, the Jews were in exile. Traditionally, they had fasted at certain times during the year, specifically the 4th, 5th, 7th, and 10th months, not
the entire month, I don't believe, but some type of fasting, in remembrance of the siege and overthrow of Jerusalem. But around 480 BC, they had come back to Jerusalem and were in power there again. And in Zechariah chapter 7, the priests and prophets asked the Lord if they should continue to fast now that they were back in Jerusalem. And the Lord came back and said to them in chapter 7, verse 5, when you fasted during the 5th and 7 months during those 70 years, did you really fast for me? That's a good question, right? God's reply, should we continue fasting, gives us an important answer to why we should or shouldn't fast, right? Fasting should always come from the heart. If you're just going to fast because someone told you to or because it's your tradition, then all you're going to get is hungry. But if you're fasting with the Lord's will in mind, then you will be blessed. That was from 19 years ago. I just read that word for word. I hope that was right. I didn't go back and fact check myself. But the health benefits and those kind of things are besides the point, right? If we're going to fast so that we can drop a few pounds or look better in the mirror, then it's not really a spiritual discipline, right? It's just a fad diet. And in recent years, we've seen some of these studies about intermittent fasting and some of these kind of diets, and it's kind of funny how they've become popular. And if you read anything on this intermittent fasting, you see that the nutritionists are simply discovering very real scientific health benefits for something that God told us thousands of years ago was good for us and that we should do, right? And that's often how it is, right? We're catching up with our own research to understand that God knows and that we can follow him. Fasting from food is for a certain amount of time is probably one of the simplest and easiest ways to spiritually exercise. But it's not the only way. The heart of fasting, and I said it before and I'll say it again probably a few times, is intentionally refraining from something that you would usually do. So if you sometimes look up at work and you go, oh, I worked through lunch again. It's 3 o'clock. I'm just going to wait until dinner. Then if you said to the Lord, you know, Lord, I'm going to skip lunch today for you, that might not be all that impressive of a fast if you wouldn't really even think about it that much. It'd be like a bodybuilder who went to the gym and picked up the tiniest dumbbell and did this 10 times and set it down and went home. For somebody else, maybe a small kid or something, maybe that dumbbell would be an amazing feat. But for a bodybuilder, that's not a very good one. So when we pick something to fast from, we need to pick something on purpose that's going to be difficult for us. I don't like to say that, and you don't like to hear it. So that our spiritual strength is increased, just like building muscles, right? The bodybuilder doesn't build muscles unless he lifts hard things. And so we need to set fasts that stretch us. So if you can easily go a week without something, should you set a goal of going 7.5 days without that something and call that a fast? Maybe not. Maybe that's not enough. To pick a good workout that will stretch you, first, you got to identify an area that you want to work on. I'm going to continue this muscle thing. So if you decide you want, better abs or biceps or something like that, you pick that muscle group and you say, I'm going to work on this, right? So in fasting, maybe you want to pick something that you want to work on. Then you decide how many reps you're going to do and how many, how often you're going to do that workout, how much weight you're going to lift. So applying that to spiritual fasting, and remember, the entire point of fasting is about growing spiritually, not building stronger muscles or looking better in the mirror or whatever we're doing. We need to figure out what we want to fast from, and then we need to determine what is a appropriate workout, how long we should fast, and how often we should do it. So some things, examples that come to mind for me, I'll just name a few. You guys can think of your own, but how about junk food or drinking alcohol or shopping or smoking? Or how about this one, digital things like social media or games or TV shows, those kinds of things. I want you to think about one of the things either that I named or something specific to you that would be kind of, muscle building. And think about how often you do that thing, whatever it might be. Maybe you love to go shopping every Saturday. So what would be a good fast if you had targeted that one? Would you say, I'm not going to shop for the next 32 Saturdays in a row? That would probably be a wild place to start, right? How about you just skip this Saturday? There's other things that are a lot more frequent, like smoking, right? What if you decided just to skip the 10 a.m. smoke break Monday through Friday this week? That would be an interesting fast. Both of those are fasts, and they're very different in their application, right? One is doing something, for a whole day, and another is doing a tiny little something every day. They're both effective, and they're both probably very hard for people that are looking to, break a certain routine or intentionally, do this thing. They should be hard, but they should not be demoralizing things. If you ever were to tell yourself, I'm going to skip lunch every Tuesday for the rest of my life, then chances are you're going to grow to hate Tuesdays. You're just going to say, oh no, it's Tuesday again. I hate Tuesdays. And that's not the point of fasting. The point is to draw closer to God. And maybe that would be an appropriate fast for you. Maybe you would grow to love Tuesdays. It would stretch you spiritually. I don't know. It's for you to figure out. But another example, and I already talked about this one, was digital, right? Technology or social media, smartphones, TV shows, those kind of things. That's one I think that we can all relate to, right? And I'm not going to ask anybody to raise their hands, but you can if you want. Who here picks up their phone as almost one of the very first things they do when they wake up in the morning? I do it. Oh, man. Yeah. Hey, I should have said, don't raise somebody else's hand, Kevin. Come on. Smartphone, social media, digital media, that has got to be, certainly in America, but maybe in the world, one of the most common and difficult addictions in our culture. It really, really is. I mean, I experience, you ever forgot your phone at home and you have this thing in your mind where I couldn't possibly go without my phone today, right? I'm going to be late, but I have to turn around and go get that thing, They're very, very addictive. So if you're looking to exercise some spiritual muscles, what would a difficult but possible digital or smartphone or whatever fast look like for you? For me, I could say I'm not going to get into any digital stuff for the first hour of every day, or maybe every day this week, or maybe tomorrow. Maybe you hear that and you think to yourself, yeah, I could do that. I could spend the first hour of the day not doing digital things because I got to take a shower and then I'm going to cook breakfast. So there's the hour right there. So, we do that. When we pick a fast, we immediately try to pick something that we know we could do and won't be too hard on us, right? Oh, I'm red. I might be low on batteries. You want me to do this thing? No, we don't have this thing piped into the...
It'll work.
It'll work? Okay. Yeah, it's red. Is it? Yes, picking a fast that's appropriate for us.
us, that makes us hurt a little bit when we think about doing it, right? Maybe you say, oh, do I really need to set a goal that big? And maybe it would be okay if you're looking at some kind of a routine for fasting to start something small and grow into it, but not something that's so easy that you wouldn't even really think about it as you went through it. You want to pick something in that spot. And what does it do? Somebody here that's done some fasting of one type or another. What does it, when you're in that fast? What is one of the things that happens to you? Just shout it out.
You feel deprived.
Yeah, you have to resist.
You think about it. Yeah. Your whole day or your morning or whatever is different, isn't it? You don't just go through that day without thinking about the Lord. If you are choosing to not do something that you could easily do and every day do, then every time your mind goes to that, maybe say you're skipping a meal or something like that, it comes 1 o'clock in the afternoon and your stomach growls, and then 2 o'clock and 3, you're really going to be thinking about the Lord a lot, and you're thinking about why you do it, right? One person said this about it. Fasting brings about increased prayer time and effectiveness. When fasting from food, called water fasting, I constantly find myself thinking of food, which immediately brings me back to thinking about God. So then I pray. So it goes like this: food, God, pray. Food, God, pray. But when the hunger goes away, and it does, then it goes like this: God, pray, God, pray. That sounds like a pretty good day right there, right? I'm probably not going to make any giant life mistakes when my day goes, God, pray, God, pray. A quote from St. Augustine goes like this: do you wish your prayer to fly toward God? Give it 2 wings: fasting and almsgiving. Right? Yeah. Are we all still thinking about that fast that we don't want to do that we now know that we probably do need to do? That's kind of where my brain goes when I look at this stuff. Anytime I decide to fast from something, I do that thing where I go, okay, how long can I go without being too uncomfortable? Right? I want to set that goal that stretches you. When you think about a possible fast for yourself, maybe it's not the amount of time. Maybe it's an event. I think, I was trying to think of some examples that work for this. And I thought of a girl example and a guy example, so I'm going to share both of those now. And it's up to you to figure out which one is for which. I'm not going to say. But do you have a fancy party to go to? Maybe you could wear a dress or a pair of shoes that you've already worn before. Or what if you only drink water at the Super Bowl party you're going to? Right? To go back to the weightlifter example, those kinds of short, intense fasts, those could be fast. You could consider them that if they're for the right reason. They could be like powerlifting, right? A short workout with really, really heavy weights, and that's what those powerlifters do sometimes. Maybe you don't need to fast from food for a week or a certain activity for a month or something like that. Maybe you just need to pick one thing and say, during this one thing, I'm not going to do something, and I'm not going to do that for the Lord. And maybe people would ask you, hey, what's going on with you? I've seen you wear those shoes before. And maybe it could be a great conversation, but you can't be like those Pharisees. You can't show up with you, oh my gosh, this ratty old thing. Jesus said, they have their reward in full. The verb there, and I can't pronounce it, about reward in full, to have in full, has a commercial sense, they say, and it means to receive a sum in full and to give a receipt for it. It means a person had received his due and was entitled to nothing else. Jesus lets everyone know that the Pharisees are entitled to nothing else when they go about looking for glory among men when they fast. It's very, very important, right? He says when you fast, he knows we're all going to fast, or it was assumed, at least in that time, that everyone did it. Don't walk around looking like it, because you will receive every reward you're going to receive when you tell people, oh, I'm doing this new thing, so I can go closer to the Lord. Act normal, fix your hair, fix your makeup, go through the time, positive. Walking side by side with the Lord, your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. I wonder, what would that reward be? I don't know. But you won't either if you don't get some fasting time. All right. Moving on from fasting, from sort of physical things or activities or whatever, we can talk about things of the mind next. And speaking of things of the mind, if you didn't get a chance to hear Margaret's message last week, it was so good. Please go back and watch it. She talked about forgiveness and some of the examples that she used of Mother Lambert and the others were just so good. They really, really spoke to me. And it'll give you a little perspective when you hear about people with big, big problems. Some of the things that I consider problems are less problems when I hear about forgiveness that big. But things of the mind. So I've shared this before, but I'll say it again. Heather is a refiner and a sounding board for most of the stuff that I come up here and preach. It's usually filtered through her. I kind of bounce things off of her and ask her questions, and her feedback and her suggestion have helped for almost 20 years worth of these messages. And this time is no exception. I don't know if she's even in the room right now. Okay. I'm not going to say anything bad about her, but it's recorded. I won't. We were talking about fasting quite a bit, and at one point I asked her if she thought it would be possible to suggest that I could suggest that people fast from an attitude. And jokingly, she said, "You'd suggest that a person could control their attitudes?" We laughed about that, and we kind of sat there, and it's like, oh, man. And I said, no, I'm not suggesting it. I'm declaring it. We're supposed to be. We can be in control, or working on being in control of our attitudes. So I wonder, though, that the attitude of unforgiveness that Margaret talked about last week, that's a hard one. What about an attitude of attention seeking? An attitude of anger, or an attitude of selfishness? Fasting from external things done correctly is going to bring you about a lot of internal thoughts, right? We talked about that earlier, where when you're physically fasting for something, your mind goes to that thing and how you want it, and how you're choosing not to pick up that smartphone or to do that thing. And each time it brings those internal thoughts, like if you decide to fast from breakfast, but you drink a protein shake every morning instead of cooking a full meal, is your mind really going to do its normal thing? If you do a fast correctly, your mind's going to spend time with the Lord, much more so than usual. Every time your body tells you want to do that thing. So getting that exercise is going to help you begin to overcome, I think, those harmful feelings, those harmful attitudes that are hurting you at your job, with your family, in your church. So I want to share a practical tip for getting in a fasting routine, a couple of practical tips. I've got an app on my phone called My Prayer Mate. And it's this great tool because it asks me, when I first downloaded it, set it up, to type in a bunch of different things that I wanted to pray for. And it has fill-in stuff where I can just pick verses out of the Bible and biblical prayers and those kind of things to do. It had several lists and just helpful topics that I could pray about each day. And it sends me a notification every morning. And I try to look at that list and pray individually for everything on that list. And whatever the app happens to choose that day from the lots of different things that I typed in there or chose to go in there, I know that God's got a plan for that day on what He's trying to do. Maybe He's trying to influence me to be more aware of a coworker or a certain biblical prayer or something like that. So I try to keep my mind in that place. So I would suggest that if you have problems of self-discipline, but you're good like me at following a list or following a system, one that I imposed on myself for no other reason, but that I feel like I have to do what this app tells me to do. I broke the rules today. So that system, I know myself and I know the way that I work. And when I put specific things in there to do, then I'm going to do them that day. Whereas if I just woke up in the morning and said, oh, I'm going to fast from such and such today, no TV today, or whatever, that might be a little harder. But if I typed that in there and it came back and told me that, then I would say, okay, Lord, I know you want me to do this today. I'm going to do that. So for those of you that are like me and like systems and following lists and things, maybe that's a practical tip on what you can do. For some of you, that's not a good method. For Heather, she hates the concept of something like that. She really likes accountability. She likes accountability, peer pressure, right? If that's you, if you respond more to people than to lists or something like that, maybe you could tell someone. Again, we're not being like the Pharisees. We're not going to somebody to tell them, hey, I decided to do this amazing fast. We're going to go to them and we're going to say, hey, I feel like God's impressing on me to do this kind of a fast. And I would like your help. I would like you to ask me about that once a week or every day or whatever your fast looks like. Because you might need that kind of extra motivation to carry through with a fast. But to close it out, I really want to stress the importance. This is something that we are bad at. We're bad at intentionally choosing. We have so much of everything in our culture. We lack for very, very little. And this is a way that we can grow closer to the Lord that's not easy, but is effective. And I really, really do want to encourage you to be hungry for the Lord. So I'm so glad you picked that song, Lori, today. Can we sing that song again to close? Can we sing Hungry? I felt like you must have picked that one for a reason.
I forgot what it was.
And let's sing it again. And through the lens of everything that we talked about just now, I really would like you to think about being hungry for the Lord instead of hungry for whatever other things that we do sometimes hungry for.
Hungry I come to you, for I know you satisfy.
do more than any other thing. Of course, Lord, we do want the rewards that you promise for when we fast, but Lord, we don't want to do it just for rewards. We want to do it so we can grow closer to you. We can be better representation of your Son, Jesus. Please impress on us today what it is that we can do in our lives to fast from, to grow closer to you, and to reflect Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen. All right. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.